Imagine being blind from birth, and then one day, through the most unexpected means, mud and spit, suddenly seeing the world for the first time. Today we're exploring how the most profound transformations often come through the most unlikely channels.
The way this story challenges our assumptions about healing and faith is really fascinating. Here's someone living on society's margins, and his whole world changes in the most unconventional way.
Well, what really strikes me is how the story opens. Jesus and his disciples see this blind man, and immediately they jump to this very human conclusion about blame and punishment.
That's so relevant to today, isn't it? When something difficult happens, our first instinct is often to ask, why me? Or try to find someone to blame.
You know what's fascinating? In ancient Jewish culture, there was this widespread belief that suffering was always connected to sin. So when Jesus completely flips this narrative, he's challenging centuries of cultural understanding.
That perspective shift must have been absolutely shocking to everyone present. So what happens next is even more unexpected, right?
Oh yeah, Jesus does something that would probably get him trending on social media today. He spits on the ground, makes mud, and applies it to the man's eyes. You know, in ancient medicine, saliva was actually considered to have healing properties.
Well, that's really interesting context. So this wouldn't have seemed quite as strange to people then as it does to us now.
Exactly, though the method was still unusual enough to cause quite a stir. But here's what's really powerful: this man, who's never seen anything in his life, simply trusts and follows these bizarre instructions.
The level of faith there is remarkable. And you know what's even more interesting? The pool of Siloam where he was sent to wash archaeological discoveries have shown it was quite a significant distance from the city centre.
Right. So imagine making that journey blind with mud on your face, probably getting strange looks from everyone you passed. But here's where it gets really interesting. After he's healed, instead of celebration, we get controversy.
The community's reaction tells us so much about human nature, doesn't it? Instead of rejoicing, they're debating his identity and questioning the method.
And then the religious authorities get involved because, get this, the healing happened on the Sabbath. According to their laws, making mud was considered work, which was forbidden on the Sabbath.
That detail about making mud being considered work, it really shows how rigid their interpretation of religious law had become.
But here's what I find most compelling: this formerly blind man's response grows bolder throughout the story. When questioned by these powerful religious leaders, he simply states, "One thing I do know, I was blind but now I see."
That simplicity is so powerful. No theological arguments, no complex explanations, just his lived experience.
You know, historians tell us that standing up to the Pharisees like this could result in being put out of the synagogue, which meant complete social isolation. The stakes were incredibly high.
Well, that adds a whole new layer to his courage, doesn't it? He was risking everything to stand in his truth.
And perhaps that's the most relevant part for us today. This idea that transformation often requires us to trust what seems illogical, and then have the courage to stand firm in our experience, even when others question it.